I got to a place where I could feel that I was slipping back into depression, and I knew I had to change something really, really bad. And I still remember this very clearly, is that I sat down in my bedroom, and it was kind of in a sense of desperation. I'm like, I've tried everything else, so I'm going to try to pray. And so I just said, listen, you know how bad I can fuck things up? And I've already done that, and it's taken me a lot to get out to this point. And so just please make it super clear to me what I'm supposed to do, because you know I'll do it. And I was kind of being almost a little sassy in my prayer. And I said, and I'm not leaving until you tell me.
Real business owner.
Whatever your situation is currently is not your forever situation.
That's really what real business owners is, man. Like, we don't care where you come from, where are you going?
Our goal and our job is to reduce the mistakes that you have to make or the money that you have to lose.
You want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be successful, don't give up.
You learn, adjust, and continue to move forward.
Welcome back to another episode of the Real Business Owners Podcast. You guys, we got a guest. We finally got one.
We got one.
You guys,
the solo streak.
Yeah, I know. We have been on a solo streak.
Yeah.
So this is a real special guest that we got today, because this guy is with us all the time, but he's the guy that we always turn to for wisdom. He's the guy that we, wouldn't have the Real Business Owners community without. Like, he's just been a huge part of our team. And honestly, man, like, the conversations we've had over the years, dude, are just incredible. I can think of many times we've been like, dude, we need to do a podcast on that. Yeah. So here we are finally doing a podcast. Trev, myself, and Corey McNeil. Welcome, brother.
We probably won't have anything to talk about now.
Yeah, his mind just went blank.
He's like, wait a minute, I'm on the spot.
Now he's going to see actually how hard it is when he's like, dude, just act like the camera's not there. Record the content. Yeah. Record the content.
You have said that.
Yeah, I have.
There's been many times.
And for those who don't know,
me.
I'm usually on the back side of stuff.
Yeah,
so,
he's the behind the scenes
behind
wizard.
The scenes.
Yeah,
making it all happen. Sometimes see the camera crew. I'm the guy you don't see, and that's by design. But
not today.
Not today. I guess.
Yeah, you're an ass man.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're like
he's
in all the glory.
The scenes, dude.
In all the glory. Yep.
So why don't you, I guess maybe share the story of how you came to me and Kale and how this whole relationship began, right? Like, I think that's probably a good starting point, right? Like you've had many businesses in the past and tried many different things, and you had a business when we initially met you, and you were the individual that sold us into working with the business that you owned at that time. It definitely wasn't the other individual partner, whatever you want to call it. It was definitely you that we bought into, and the reason why we cut the check. So
back that individual. Try calling today.
Remember, we literally sat down with them though, and like Corey's like, listen, guys, I'm not a salesman. I'm just here to do this and blah, blah, blah. And by the time we walked down, we're like, that was the salesman.
Yeah. Well, if somebody ever says I'm not a salesman, that's how you can identify quickly that they're probably a great salesman. Well, they try to disarm you right off the bat.
You were a tough sell. I will give you that. You were kind of barking a bit.
What? I don't remember barking at all.
Oh yeah, you're like basically. You know how many agencies we've tried, and
that was
promises.
That was the truth, though.
I know, but I'm like, I can't control anything that went before me, and I'm probably one of the very few people who will grace your door. I remember exactly what I said. I'll be one of the very few people who will grace your door that will make a financial impact to the degree that I will. And everybody was like, "Ooh, the big dog," and I didn't know that I was challenging the big dog at the time. I didn't know, how that whole thing would play out. I didn't understand all the relationships.
Put you under a little pressure to see how you responded, and you responded. And we cut the check.
Yeah, and here we are, almost 5 years. In fact, in just a few weeks, it'll be 5 years.
Time flies.
In fact, technically, that's as an employee. So I've been with you guys for about 5.5 years.
Yeah.
So, answer your question. So I've been involved in internet marketing. Started actually in like 1996. You've had a previous guest on here, Shane Brinkerhoff. He and I were partners together on like the original iteration. And then my wife and I, we conceived our first child. I had to step back, started swinging a hammer to be able to provide for the family, and never really left.
Doing that? Do you ever look back on that and say, man, I shouldn't
When
have
he
done
sold
that?
it, I think, and I don't know, Shane, correct me if I'm wrong, whatever he sold it for, $15 million. Every once in a while, he'll kind of like get a little dig in there. He'd be like, so how's that hammer treating you?
Yeah.
And I won't say it publicly, but I always have a little witty come back to, how's this treating you? But there's no regrets. Honestly, I'm back actually finally at a place in my life where I'm at peace. I couldn't say that for most of my life. You guys have been a huge, tremendous instrumental part of that. So as the story goes, is that I was partnered with an individual who so I worked actually with Shane, and shout out to Scott Young on online web marketing, all those guys over there. So I worked for those guys for 9 years, was recruited away in a really weird form. Didn't work, but long run it ended up working out. But I ended up kind of building up my own client base, and was approached by this other guy from Parowan. And for those that don't know, it's a little town in southern Utah, but I was approached about doing a kind of a deal with you guys. He's like, hey, if I could get you in I know I could close them. We pull up to the parking lot, and this would have been an important piece of information. He's like, oh yeah, I've already done work with these guys before. I don't remember what I billed them, $5,000, and really never did anything. And I'm like, what do you mean didn't do anything? That's kind of an important piece of information to bring me as I'm walking up to a meeting, right?
Yeah.
He's like, no, there were leads, but they just weren't very good leads. I don't think any of them converted. It's all right. They're really cool guys. And I'm like, I did not want to get out of the car. And so I'm like, let's do this. How bad can it be, right? That was the meeting we were talking about, barking down the big dog. And then, so that was actually give you guys a proposal for SEO work, search engine optimization. Worked in the capacity for that. Was honestly coming through a really dark, difficult episode that lasted a mere 7 years or whatever it was. And,
That's a long season. That's a big ass storm.
It was just, it went on for a while, and without going into details there either. But really, I became very humble. And there's a few things, and I know you wanted to touch on this, is that when I was younger, I never, in elementary school, I was never I struggled. I was always literally a D student, right? Mm-hmm. And so the first time I ever had any type of accolades as far as intelligence was, still remember her name's Leilani Bentley. She's since passed away, but she was our English teacher. And we did some type of a speech and debate. I remember I actually took the pro on why legalization of marijuana, and I was a good little Mormon kid at the time. And for the arguments of it. And I won over the student, forum that we were doing. And she came up to me. She's like, Corey, we'd like to have you on the academic decathlon. And I'm like, no, you don't. And she's like, no, really, Corey, we really do. And I'm like, Leilani, my grades, you give them to me. So that this would, if you have a dummy squad that I don't know about, and this is back in the 80s, she literally slapped me. And she's like, you know what your fucking problem is? And she was Mormon too. So for her just to drop the F-bomb, she's like, you know what your fucking problem is? You're lazy. You're not stupid. You're fucking lazy. And I went on and actually joined the academic decathlon, and I did pretty well. And that was the first kind of taste that I had that I liked being considered smart. So fast forward to go and work with Shane and Scott over at Online Web Marketing. Scott did a really good job. He was my pitch man. I would walk into a room and he's always like, you guys, this is the smartest guy you guys are going to meet ever. If not for sure this year, but I promise this is going to the smartest guys you'll ever meet. And he boosted my ego. And so whenever I would come in and talk to you guys, I'd walk into this beautiful office. And for those that are listening, I'm 51 years old, got a lot of gray in my beard and stripes on the side of my head. And these guys were considerably younger there. It was 5 years ago. So you were actually 35. And I just knew there was something different. I was doing a lot of work for Smith & Wesson, the firearm company, for their accessory line, Sportsman's Warehouse, some bigger high-profile clients, on and on. And every time I came in here, there was just something different about you guys. And keep in mind, these bigger companies were trying to recruit me to come in-house. And I was finally got to, this is a long-winded explanation of what your question was.
I like it. I'm listening.
Was that I got to a place where I could feel that I was slipping back into depression. And I knew I had to change something really, really bad. And at the time, I was actually listening to Tom Bilyeu's Impact Theory. I don't remember who the guest was, but he was talking about like, really, you have to shake up your life. And I still remember this very clearly, is that I sat down in my bedroom, and it was kind of in a sense of desperation. I'm like, I've tried everything else, so I'm going to try to pray. And so I just said, listen, you know how bad I can fuck things up. And I've already done that, and it's taken me a lot to get out to this point. And so just please make it super clear to me what I'm supposed to do, because I'll do it. And I was kind of being almost a little sassy in my prayer. And I said, and I'm not leaving until you tell me. And I sat down, and I was shocked at how fast, and I've told you this, your face, and I'm talking, Kale's face came to my mind right then in that moment. And that image hadn't even flashed for like a millisecond. I'm like, I'll do anything except for that. I'm not going to shut my business down, because you know how hard I've worked to get all these clients and to build all this stuff up. And that little voice was just like, you said you'd do anything. So it was more of like a, I'll show you type thing. I got up, didn't call my wife, nothing. And I reached out to you. Mm-hmm. And this, I remember it was around noon, because you were at lunch with your partners. And I just said, hey, this might be kind of coming out of left field, but I want to know if you would entertain the thought if I was to come in house and work for you.
Yeah, because we were already paying X amount of dollars for the SEO work, and it was basically
agency rate.
Why don't I just come in house for the same amount of pay for right now, And but dude, I've told you this before too when we've had this conversation. Like, that wasn't like a sign my face to like be this amazing influence in your life. It was probably a reciprocal thing, right? Because like me going through my trials too, dude, like I've reached out to you for a lot of wisdom, and you've been there for me, like getting freaking left high and dry on my house. You showed up and like literally helped me finish building it. You know what I mean? So it's like, dude, like sometimes I feel like you tell the story where you're just like, dude, like Kale's face appeared because it was like, I needed him or something. It's like, I think God has a way of like aligning you with the people that need each other, right?
Oh,
like it's
sure.
a reciprocal thing.
I think you have to, first of all, humble enough to ask. Secondly, there has to be an element of faith where you expect it.
Right.
And I knew it would come. That's not what I expected.
Yeah.
And then in full circle, and to finish that story, if memory serves me right, and correct me if I'm wrong, I remember it was kind of an awkward. He's like, yeah, let me call you back. And I was like, shit, I just lost my favorite client. That was really weird. And then I'm all second guessing myself. And it was hours and hours later. It was later in the evening. And when you call back, and he's like, I had to look around to see if you were eavesdropping on us, because we were out to lunch, you and JD, Jeremy, and Trevor, talking about that it makes sense to bring a marketing company in-house. And here you use the exact words, coming in-house.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, that's the way my memory, is that close? Like, do you even remember that?
Well, Trev knows I'm like, I'm an easy sell, right? I'm the yes man, he's the no man. Yeah. And so I was probably at lunch with him like, let me call you back, dude. And then like, hey guys, like we could get Corey in house right now.
And I'm like, huh? Like that was out of left field, but that goes to show that a lot of the best things that could happen to you come at unexpected times and do come out of left field, right? Like you were at a low point, and it took you a low point to do what? To finally sit down, say a prayer, and actually be willing to listen to the hunch or the message to reach out to Kale. Like if you were at a halfway decent place, you would have never got to that point. And if you got a message to say, hey, you could be in a better position, but you got to do X, you probably wouldn't have done X if it was enough to where it wasn't as painful. You see what I'm saying? And so I think,
and I just didn't want to go back to that pain, how bad it had been before. I knew like
it just gets to a certain point. Just I'll do anything, just anything. We met with an individual at lunch that he talked about some of, his low points where he said, I'll do anything. Right. And there we talked about the power of prayer at lunch in terms of him being at a low spot too. So if anything, this podcast could be about like one, getting alone with yourself, getting good with God. If you're at a low spot, ask for help and actually listen to, whatever the promptings are that you do receive. Because how many times do we justify ourselves out of not doing something because it's like, anything but that.
Yeah.
I remember driving down the road when it was time to quit smoking weed. And it was like a message, hey, that's holding you back now. And I'm like, nah, it's not. Like you're trying to justify reasons not to listen to it. And I think that everybody listening to this podcast has had those times where there's a message that they receive and then they justify themselves out of actually listening to that message.
Dude, the biggest one was right then, and I had to be honest with myself, is the fact that, like, here's these guys that are considerably younger than me. And I'd grown accustomed to feeling smart and almost having that feed my ego. And could I more or less re-engineer who I am to now become the student and not be inclined to like, oh, I know the answer to that. So like to flip it. And that was the first thing is like, dude, you like, if you know everything, then you're not going to learn from them. Like, I honestly figured it'd be 6 months. That's what the whole, like, and I'm sure I've said this, but full disclosure, I'm like, I'll figure it out in 6 months. I can be working in an accounting company. I'm sure I'm going to learn some cool tax tips and how to run my business. And I'll understand where were the things that I did wrong, and I'll be off and on my way. But I didn't expect to actually like take up your guys' mission to drink the Kool-Aid, to be involved in it. But I still remember my converting moment was that, do you remember, what you say it, Charlie, that guy?
Oh, yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie, yeah. So for those that don't know, he's actually an old sales guy that was here. There was some commitment. He basically, like, I don't know if he slammed some old person on the phone into something he shouldn't have or whatever it was. I'd only been here for a couple weeks, and I was in the office across from this office right here, and I heard you guys in there saying, you guys don't understand. It's our name, our commitment that we're giving to people. And when you guys go out and you don't do something, you're not the one who has to face people publicly. If you say you're going to do it, then do it. And it was right then that I knew. I'm like, okay, I found my tribe.
Yeah.
Like, it aligns with all of my core principles and my values. And I always kind of had this preconceived idea that if you were going to be ultra wealthy, and I think a lot of people listening will probably relate to this, you couldn't be a good person. That somewhere along the line, you'd have to sacrifice integrity, or you'd have to be ultra. And you guys have been one of the very first few examples that I've seen of that, of the generosity that I've seen like time and time again. And so I just was like, okay, well, what I thought I was going to learn, it's going to probably take me some time.
Jeez, well, I'm glad we got you on the show today, dude. Way to sell us.
I was going to say, is this about me and Kale, or is this about Corey?
And everybody. In fact, I'm going to say that
Don't stop Kaysen, now, though.
Kaysen, one of the, he oversees the sales. Like, I've told you this, the very first day I started.
Yeah.
There's some lady that pulls up in this beat up old like Ford Windstar, missing windows and broken turn signals and all that. You can tell these people they are struggling hard. And this lady gets out and she's like, Mom, there's no handicap ramp here, because her mom's in a wheelchair. She's getting her out. And Kaysen, for those that don't know, this guy looks like he served 18 years, tatted up completely, beard, just this burly big dude. And he's like, it's okay, ma'am. We'll help you. He's like, come on, guys, let's pick her up. And just immediately goes over and starts lifting her up in her wheelchair to get him up on the curb. And so, again, there's just been these, dude, it's a whole group of people there, man.
It is really cool to just constantly watch the evolution in the company of the people, right? Like, true. I walked around the other day and was talking with a few people, and Brittany was just like, I just love this. Like, she's been here, how many months?
I don't know.
Six? Yeah, it hasn't faded at all. She's just like loves that. She's like, everybody has a growth mindset. And like, I haven't been in the best mindset lately. So I was like, so glad to hear it. But like, the people that we attract for whatever reason are just good people. You're one of them. You know?
No, I mean, me and JD were just talking about that yesterday. We're like, dude, just walking around the company. And I think this is a good lesson for anybody that's listening is if you've got to a certain spot in business, and the problems that you face are the same ones year after year after year after year, maybe it's not the industry or the business. Maybe it's the people that you're surrounding yourself with and the people that are in your business. Because if you look around our business, we've literally changed 80% of the staff within a matter of about 1 year, right? Like that old saying, what got you there isn't going to get you here, or whatever it is, right? Like, unfortunately, you know, there's certain people that just don't have a growth mindset, like Brittany was talking about, right? That they just don't. And when you really, really put your foot down and honor core values, and you live by a set of principles or standards, like calling people out, hey, we don't do that here. If you say you're going to do it, then do it, you know, and you actually live by that, you're going to push about half of your employees out when you want to elevate your standards. And then the other 25%, they're going to kind of stick around to see if you're full of shit or not. And then you're going to have to exit them from your business. And then it's literally piece by piece by piece. But, you know, I would say Corey's probably, you know, out of the last 5 years or so, because you've been with us for 5 years, you were probably, and what's weird is to hear that you were at a dark place at that time, because I think when he came in, he was kind of a light to us and the business, just as a whole, at that time. And then it's just like year after year, piece by piece after that, we've just been adding very similar caliber type people that bring their own uniqueness and their own value and their own light, that want to honor a set of principles and values, that want to go to the next level, but not do it in a cut corners type of way, right? And you've already alluded to that just a few times, just in terms of some of the people that are now in the company. And
it's one of the things about age that I like. There's not a lot. In fact, there's very few.
I don't know, dude. A gray beard there's something about it.
But I will say this: what I like, appreciate age, is that now I can recognize moments when they're magic and they're happening. When I was younger, you sometimes take them for granted, and whether it's like, you know, you go out and you meet your best friend, and you're just like, that first few times you're like, man, I didn't know that this is going to be my ride or die for the next 5 or 10 years. I can't even remember that minute. I'm very aware now through my life of when those things happen. Our whole crew, the media department and everybody else around, they've heard me say it 100 times. I'm like, I feel bad for the younger guys, because you guys are riding a unicorn and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this magic, eventually this company will sell. It'll probably sell in the multiples, right? To get us from here to there, it's going to be the transformation into a different type of company, and that's okay. I'm just glad that I got to be a part of it when it was still little, and that there was still kind of that bootstrap feel. And it was just, actually, no, you guys never really did have the bootstrap feel, because you guys are always, that's what's one of the attractions, is I've never really had budgets, which was kind of a weird concept for me. You know what I mean? I just have to sell it well. That was all.
I don't know. Try it, spend it.
Throw money in. I'm the one over there just the opposite. I'm like, guys, hey, look, we could pick this up used, or we could do this. And Kale's like, what? The scarcity bullshit, man. Stop it. Like, you know.
Yeah, you weren't around on the bootstrap times, you know, where we were just stacking cash for the purpose of being able to say, try it.
Yeah.
You know, do it.
Run $1,000 a day on that split test.
Yeah. That's still to this day, it's a weird concept for me, but you know,
I don't know.
It has been cool to see what we've built and what we've grown.
We're just the type of people shit works out for them, dude.
I know.
You know,
I think that's part of it. Honestly.
Yeah. We just throw shit against you throw enough shit against the wall, something's going to stick. And
our shit sticks, dude.
Yeah.
But I will say this, is that I'm one of the last people to ever to adopt this position of mindset. And I know that that's almost like your superpower. But what I've learned from, there's actually a lot of truth to it, is that I think that mindset, I didn't understand, I had a talk with one of our people about self-sabotage, and I never really, I always kind of called bullshit on it. I'm like, no, dude, if you've got a good thing, you keep it. That's what we all want. And as I was trying to explain it to him, I said, hey, listen, have you ever gone out to a really nice dinner? And this is speaking for personal experience. When you go to a really nice steakhouse and you go in and you just feel, I'm like, how do you feel when you go? He's like, awkward. I'm like, but did you like it? Yeah. But he's like, I just felt out of place. I just didn't belong there. I'm like, now imagine if your friend came in and they were like, hey, let's go to that steakhouse again. I don't really, just kind of weird. You know, I'm not feeling well. I ate earlier. Hey, I've got to go hang out with my buddies. You'll start making excuses of why you're not going to show up.
Yeah.
But if you go to enough really nice steakhouses, you start to develop a taste for it and you start to be comfortable in that environment, which, by the way, go with Kale because he's definitely very bougie. He knows, like, he'll be like, no, Corey, don't eat that
crab
calamari.
Cakes here
this
are
crab cake for real. He can get me
calamari here's garbage.
eat stuff that I would never normally eat, and he was right, it's good. But my whole point is that, like, you find yourself making excuses or creating environments in order if you're not comfortable in them.
Yeah.
So it's the best explanation that I can get as far as like self-sabotage. And that was one of my eye-openers here, was because of the fact that I felt like I was working with just my homies. Mm-hmm. I never felt this weird, it was weird. We'd go out, we'd go meet with people, earning 10 million, 15, 20 million a year and big, huge, like different lifestyles that I'm accustomed to. But I always felt comfortable in the environment, I think because of the fact that you guys are relatable and you've always stayed that. And so, in fact, that's actually my time of onboarding the mastermind members. That was the number one thing from the feedback from the podcast listeners, is that they're like, dude, we feel like we know them. Like they're very real people, and I can relate to them. And I think that that's been the reason of why I assimilated so fast into this environment, is because I think the whole company has been kept that way. Something I've appreciated.
That's awesome, dude. Thanks for making it about us. Now let's make it about you. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think we can go for another 5, about us.
No, dude.
Trevor's over here like, keep going.
But dude, seriously though, like you have this superpower, okay? Like it's cool. You're like talking about our superpowers, but like you have this superpower where you've come in and it's like, and it's not all been easy, dude, because like Corey's like 1 minute he's writing our code for our CRM and he's not a programmer too.
He's had 13 different jobs.
He's had 13 different jobs and he's always done awesome to like get them to where they need to be. But like inside the environment, like people trust you, like people will tell you things that they won't tell other people. Right. And then it's been a sweet, awesome tool in order to obviously like change culture, or if it is at a lull, or and then even with the mastermind members, or if we go to a steakhouse with all these business people, you're over just talking to like whoever, like could be the biggest potential client there that we want to talk to, and they're opening up to you. Like you have this special gift to where people trust you and want to open up to you and like give you all the information that they need. But why do you think that is? Like, why do you think people open up to you so easily? Why do you think that they gravitate to you? And why do you think that they will just, ask you for your wisdom? Is it the beard?
It's definitely the beard.
I don't think it hurts. I don't think it hurts.
First of all, thank you for that. I think that you've referred to it as activated listening. I think that that's a talent. It's a gift. And I've learned that when you show interest, and that goes back to the whole concept of trying to be the smartest guy in the room. In fact, it was Alex Hermosi. It just was, which by the way, if you're listening, Alex, I am a huge fan.
I was gonna say, dude.
I don't fanboy very often. I don't fanboy very often, but I do have so much respect for the dude. But what he was talking exactly that is that, like, how many times that he's missed on opportunities because he's trying to show them about him.
Yeah.
When it's actually something that you're actually very talented as well as too, is investing in other people and like really listening. And then I remember there was a point on the road, you and I were driving down to California together, and I heard you picking up a slight like Southern accent. Do you remember this? Mm-hmm. And as I listened to him, and then, because keep in mind, we're on the road for 6 hours, and he's texting, driving, and talking all at the same time, between 3 different lanes. And
thank goodness you wanted to drive.
And so
I've been in some near-death experiences with him.
Oh yeah, which on the record, I think I might be the only person who drives faster than Kale. But,
I've slowed down.
Yeah, not me. Anyway, but I noticed that the canter, how fast you spoke, and actually even the inflection or the accent that you picked up, is that it's a subconscious thing that, or sometimes it can be deliberate, but we like people in our own tribe. And so I've learned that as a technique. It wasn't, well, actually I didn't learn it. I became aware that I did it. And I still remember my response to you. I turned and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're a chameleon. and your head snapped and you're like, what? I'm like, you do this and this and this. And I know you didn't know how to respond to that. I'm like, no, it's okay. I'm a chameleon too. Like, I think it's a gift that you can learn to emulate the environment that you're in. And I think that was the moment that I think you and I first connected. And then, so I think that that's the first part, was to be able to engage and actually really be interested in, dude, I love learning, love it. But in just asking questions, and people do like to talk about themselves. But then also is never to go into anything really with like ill will or malice. Like, I genuinely 100% want that other person to receive benefit because that time we spent together.
Right.
And I think that people can really sense that. So when you are put in awkward situations, like a coworker comes in and confides in you. In fact, we actually had a real world, you guys remember this, that person was talking about even bringing a lawsuit because of some breastfeeding situation, being behind not a locked door and
So
trying to
weird.
get
I was
all the
just talking
female
about that
employees.
Oh, I was going to say, when you said he has this thing where people just want to talk to him, I was going to say,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it was weird. So
where
yeah,
he can
this
bring things
this
to
guy
our
was
attention.
threatening, trying to get all the female coworkers together to bring a lawsuit. And I was torn between this moral dilemma. Like, what do I do? Do I honor the commitment that somebody given me in confidence of what they've shared? And I remember I sat for probably a full day and I was like, what do I do in this situation? Because collectively, this can put everybody at risk. It can put the company at risk. It could put me and my family at risk. So how do I proceed with this? And I finally decided the best thing in that case was to go to the individual directly and say, hey, listen, I know you told me this in confidence. You need to go talk to them.
Or I will.
Yeah. And I'm like, you need to talk to them, explain to them what's going on. But you've now put me in a compromised position as your friend that now impacts too many people. So sometimes you are forced into looking at it with taking the lesser of the two evils. Yeah. And also just being old. I've made the wrong call before plenty of times where I have gone around and said something and then it comes back and bites you. So, you know, so
Sure.
But that just shows you right there that if you're listening and you're having business issues, you're not the only one. We've had many.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's just that's part of the process. But you know, you I don't know if I should say it, I mean, sounded the alarm on some things that were, I guess, negative that were going on in the environments, right? Like whether you know it or not as a business owner, there's probably, and if you have enough employees, especially 30, 40, like there's gonna be like a bad egg in there.
And I was that bad egg for a long time, my old company.
You know, maybe you were, you know, in your younger years, and you said, "Hey, I recognize a unicorn now that I'm older," and there's younger people that maybe were the old version of you inside of this organization saying negative things, or you know, just trying to be a shit stirrer, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe that like.
Dude, I literally was the cancer at my old company.
Like the cancer.
I became resentful and embittered and like.
I hate when you realize you're the cancer.
You know,
dude, it was a really hard thing. And what was the worst part about it is that like when you wake up to this idea that you are actually the villain in your own story, and so that moment came. At that time I was still having a really really tough time with alcohol. Had been drinking really heavy for a long period of time. And I had all the reasons in the world to be where I was. 100%. That's the worst time, is when you're actually justified in being in that position. And when I had to take an honest look at it, I had this idea of an 8-year-old version of me walking into the room. And this concept of this little boy looking at the future man who he would become, knowing of all of the difficulties and the trials and how I responded to those and how I let those situations mold me into somebody that was negative. Like, I was literally ashamed of the fact that I became that. And in that moment, that's when I was like, you know what? I owe it to that little dude. If I'm not going to do it for me now, then I'm going to do it for 8-year-old version of me.
Like your 8-year-old was disappointed with
that's
who you
it.
became.
If I walked in,
he was like,
so
man,
worried.
You were supposed to be cool.
What's up, bitch? What you doing? Like, I for real felt.
Fucking what? Yeah. This is my future.
This is it. That's
I'm a raging alcoholic on the edge of a bed, wondering what the fuck happened with my life. Thank you. You know,
that's it.
God,
so
where did I go wrong?
Literally made a commitment in my head then. I'm like, I am getting my shit together.
that is a really meaningful concept, because I think everyone's been at some unproud moments in their life, right? Or phases, right? Because you don't have to live there forever, right? But if you could have that moment in your lulls and your down times in life, and you can be like, man, like, would 8-year-old me be proud of me right now? That really should be able to get most people off their freaking ass to make some adjustments.
What's scary is, what if that thought hadn't come into my head?
Yeah.
What if it would have just gone on forever and just continued like that? I would have been, I don't know if I'd be alive. Like,
right.
For real. You know?
Well, you said it's funny when we realize that we're I think that that's the case 100% of the time, that we're the villain in our own story based upon the perspective that we have.
We justify it.
Looking at a certain situation, and it's easier to justify this perspective than it is, taking ownership over this perspective, right? Like, I don't care what it is in anything. In your finances, you're the villain of your story. You created the financial situation. In your relationship, you're the villain of your story. In your health, you're the villain of your, like, it doesn't matter what it is. You have been the common denominator for your entire life.
100% of the time.
100% of the time, you are the common denominator.
But I think that when you can develop
Like,
the ability for self-accountability as a superpower, and Trev, I got to give you credit. That honestly, I think is one of your superpowers, that I can come to you and say, hey, maybe you're presenting like this or whatever. Dude, you take it like a champ. And I've even mentioned to you about this, is that, like, dude, I do admire and respect how hard you can take it on the chin and be like, okay, cool. Well, I appreciate you letting me know, and I'll work on that. Dude, most people don't do that. We tend to, like, throw up walls. So that, I think, is one of the, in response to the question that you asked, like, why do people do, like, I think self-observation, if I have any superpower, it's probably that I can just be observant on myself in a situation. Doesn't mean I don't get lost or, like, lose my way and stuff either. Yeah. But it's later on, usually, that, like, I might be going to bed and be like, dude, today you were really short, and because of this, this, and this, but I definitely think that in order for you guys to be in the place, you guys both have it, that the ability to take self-assessment. Now, the difference between taking self-assessment, though, and taking action, like, I don't care if you recognize all your downfalls, but if you're not willing to do something in it. And that's why, literally, I knew that if I shook it up so hard, that if I shut down my business, if I walked away from it, and I had to recommit to driving an hour each day down, my entire life would be different. Yeah. But it's just crazy how many times, time after time, that decision, and dude, you don't hear me talk like religious or spiritual very often, but, like, dude, I just believe in what we're doing so much that I believe that there's some form of like guidance, or, that's why I drank the Kool-Aid, is that I just, like, at this company, including real business owners.
God splashed the punch.
Yeah.
Or spiked the punch.
Yeah, but real business owners, or even easier accounting, like, the reason that I've been such a huge advocate is because of the fact that I realize that we can impact at scale so many people in a positive way. Yeah. And those are people that are sitting on the bed and having that argument, or having to confront their 8-year-old version of themselves, and their business is failing, and this has been a blessing. And I've talked to you about this, Kale, that, like, I could literally write a book from being in the passenger seat for thousands of miles next to you guys, of learning. I could have written a book about what not to do and how to fuck up a business, because I did that plenty. But, like, there's certain elements that are critical in my observation. Now it goes beyond you guys. It goes to our mastermind members, and, the sheer magnitude of people who I've been exposed to because of your guys' network, that there's some principal elements that.
So what are some of the principal elements then?
The first one, take accountability.
Okay.
Take action fast. That's one of the things where I've always gone wrong, is analysis paralysis. And basically building your parachute on the way down like that. Mm-hmm. And that scares me to death. Mm-hmm. Is
experts in that field.
But
we move and they're like, we don't know how, but let's just
the other thing, and this has been a recent kind of almost like a meditation, is removing yourself from a position even though you think you might be able to do it better. Mm-hmm. That's a hard thing. And that's an area that I'm still working on, even with the media team, is that sometimes I tend to come in and like take things back because I'm like, it's okay, I'll just do it.
Yeah. You do that, but
a lot. I
like
do that.
you are the kind of guy that's like the right guy for every position, but you're only one guy. You can't do every position.
Yeah. But this is my most recent aha moment. And this is from Devin Brady, our CEO, is that like,
none of us were the right guy for that position.
No, but here's what I did learn from this.
He's like, yeah, I've noticed that if we didn't do that.
And Mike Strong.
Yeah.
So here's what's really cool is to watch, and now being the student rather than the teacher, feeling like I've got to express my ego to showing them, is being quiet. That I've learned that there are fundamental things that in order to be successful in business and probably in life even, is that like, for example, if you took, I think I even talked to you about this, Trev, if you took somebody that was like a good, like they're a carpenter, construction businesses have a 98% failure rate. Why?
Right.
Because they're fucking carpenters.
Right.
I was a carpenter. I was really good at reading a tape measure. I was super shitty at estimating. But more importantly is that I didn't not just estimate well, I didn't do costing on the backside of it.
Yeah.
So this is what I've learned from you guys is to come back in and evaluate that campaign. How profitable was it? Like if the skill sets that you should be able to take a business owner out of any business and transplant them into something completely unrelated. And it's the skill, those essential skills, if you're going from a carpenter to a baker, to a restaurant owner, to a seamstress, whatever that business is, those fundamental skill sets that can be influenced only inside of that management position are the ones people should be focusing on.
Yeah.
Or else just be the seamstress or be the carpenter or be the baker. But you should be learning how to manage people. And this is, again, taking self-accountability. I tend not to still do this as well as I need to. And being able to like make sure you got the right people in the right position, knowing how to, and if you're not going to be doing your own accounting, then find somebody who is. I was horrible at sending out my invoices. The way that I gauged if my business was doing well was the amount of money I had in my bank account. But I was really super bad at procrastinating. I did work for an orthopedic surgeon, and I remember I had an invoice for $14,000. I was supposed to like $1,200 a month.
Yeah.
I would put off my invoice all year, which by the way, I still haven't done that.
Yeah.
I like even like out of pocket stuff, I just tend to let it go. That's why I'm looking at Trevor. I'm like, yeah, I forgot to do that.
I've been telling you to send me that reimbursement for probably
for low
6
stuff
months.
that I paid out of it. That's like,
Probably
no,
at
dude, it
least-
was March. It was March of last year.
Yeah.
So see,
Okay.
this will tell you right now, even though I might have the skill sets, I'm not taking action in it.
Yeah.
So going back to that, this is one of the biggest things that I've learned is to, if you identify as a weak point, then you need to delegate it.
Right.
Like if you're not the person to be sending out the invoices. So if something happened, if we got bought, if I was fired, whatever happened, if I was forced to going back into full-time self-employment, that would be one of my weaknesses, and I know it, and I would hire an accountant. I would hire somebody who would be proactive and that they would reach out to me and text message me or call me and say, hey, I got a question on this I'm in your bank statement right now. What is this?
Easier Accounting.
I'd call
That's
them.
who I'd refer you to. Yeah.
Well, here's a question for you, dude. Like, when are you going to write that fucking book? Because here's the thing, man. Every organization, especially a business from when you came into it, like, it needs people like that. Like, they need the intrapreneur type that could be their own business, right? They could, like, go and create a, business like you were doing web development, and you could hire people to work for you, and you could do just fine, even though you have these weaknesses around invoicing and all that stuff. Like, plenty of businesses that have a lot of money and do quite well still have that same weakness, right? But you have all these skill sets and these, things that you've observed over the years of like, okay, what makes this thing work? And what do you bring to the table, right? And like, what do you learn? And like the type of person that you are, like people trust you, people open up to you, you help add to the culture, you help mentor people, you bring this wisdom. So like you should write a book like that, because every business owner, every entrepreneur needs intrapreneurs or needs people on the team that
would be an
could
interesting book, yeah.
like this their own business, but yet they're here on this mission with us because, you know, one, they know it'll probably be a big benefit to them at the end of the road, or they're going to get something out of it, whether it is experience or whether it is part of a buyout or whatever it is, right? But like every organization needs those type of people bought in on the mission in order to really build something great. Like, dude, I feel unstoppable knowing that I've got people on our team that are like showing up every day. Like, I love the culture, man. But you're a huge part of that, right? And so, you know, like you really should write that type of book. Because you actually said that to me like 2 years ago. You were like, dude, I should write a book on like entrepreneurship. And like you do have all these things that you recognize about what has made our business work thus far. But then you also have all these things that you do that like I think as a business owner would be like, dude, like I need that right-hand guy that's bought in on our mission. You know what I mean? That has like these certain skill sets. Like, how can I go find my wizard? You know what I'm saying?
From entrepreneur to intrapreneur.
Dude, I'll make that commitment. I'll do that.
know?
In fact,
I would
actually,
read that book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'd be like,
why
bro.
joining a bigger mission is beneficial than the solo mission.
Yeah.
Or something
yeah,
like
that's
that.
cool,
You
dude.
know
I'll
what I
commit
mean?
to doing it. In fact, I'll commit to doing it this year.
Right?
Okay.
You should.
Yeah, I will. It's
That's a
done.
good 2023 goal.
Well, Kale brought up a good point the other day. You know, when you say yes to one thing,
You have to say no to something else.
you have to say no to something else.
Yeah.
So if you're saying yes to that,
What does it mean I'm going to say no to?
Well, I won't give up on
start-
time with my family or my
start-
cats. Like,
yeah.
So that can't come out of that. I could actually technically do it with ChatGPT and driving.
Yeah.
So there you go.
But it wouldn't be.
done.
I don't think it would. be
I'm
as
really
good.
great at that kind of stuff. I'm telling you, that's a
It
super.
wouldn't be as good as if
superpower.
it was in your own words, though.
It's still in
with
my
your
own
own
words.
Own experience.
Yeah.
ChatGPT's not your own word.
Oh, you still tell it what to say.
I was
I
like
do.
literally in the shower yesterday and I opened the shower door because my wife was in there getting ready. And I was like, do you think we should write a real business owner's book? Like we've talked about it for a couple years. Like, you know, me and Trev co-author a book, you know?
Oh, I think
Because
you
I
should
think
for
there's
sure.
so many lessons that now, like, I don't know. I think we could do it.
Well,
I think we're ready to do it.
I
too.
definitely think you should do it. I think that there'd be some.
If we
value
could lay an outline out and then be like, you
A
know,
chapter
both of our
about this.
perspectives on each chapter, it could be
Yeah.
a pretty freaking cool
Yeah.
book, dude.
That
In
would
fact,
be
that's
good.
actually going back to ChatGPT. That's actually one of the great things it is. It's like create a business outline or a book for a business. Create an outline for a book about X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It's really great.
We just go back and look at our podcast for the last 3 years and be like,
Yeah, and
dude,
just pick 10
this one was
episodes.
really
Oh my
meaningful.
gosh.
This one was really meaningful. This one's very relevant. This one is must talk about. Like we could literally create a cool 15
Dude,
chapter
there's
outline.
so much power that sits inside of this concept about podcasting that people are sleeping on it. So like we didn't like my background, we kind of alluded, you know, I've been marketing for since actually came in full time in 2004. That's when I made the leap. And search engine optimization, I made a conscious decision to start removing myself that because of technology and personalized search, and it was going to get near impossible to be able to completely game it, right? But there's some fundamentals that we stumbled on, and those being one of them is actually is social media. Like I don't care what happens with chat. Sure, you can get AI to write your posts for you, and you could still actually connect an AI to respond to them. But is it going to do it as well as a human being and be able to engage in it? So like this idea of building brands with books and podcast was something that was brand new when I came to work with you guys. I still remember we were at actually MDM in Vegas or in Dallas. And like this idea of creating a podcast, if you think about it, dude, you want to get Alex Hormozy on the phone. He said that he bills at $40,000 or $50,000 an hour. So if you need, and he actually was talking about Grant Cardone. Like I can't remember the exact, dude, it's crazy how much he was paying him. And then he's got like these little voucher tickets that he still doesn't like cashes in on them later. He's like, oh, I've only had to use 2 of them because he called up Grant. Grant helped him figure out some stumbling blocks for acquisition.com. But he's like, dude, I'm saving those for later. Like, I might need them, but I don't. He's like, I used one of them to have him on the podcast. But the value, people pay a significant amount of money to be involved in the mastermind. And the value that the podcast itself, because we're on the backside, we can see the analytics, but more importantly, people like Eddie Malouf, who was on here season 1, right?
Yeah.
That they say that this is evergreen and that like, you know, they can make tens of thousands of dollars for spending an hour of their time and being a guest on a podcast. that this was a part of marketing that I didn't even really know that this segment even existed until coming to work for you guys. So like, it was something that I've always been like amazed that this works. Like, and not just that it works, that it has done so well and it takes off, and, you know, that people, you know, they'll fly across the country to come hop on this microphone. You know, there's actual value and equity for the attention from it. It's always shocking to me, you know. But yeah, I think for a book to come into it, I think would be.
Yeah, I still need to write mine, dude.
You're probably getting close though, yeah.
Well, I started back at chapter 1 like you did.
Oh my gosh, dude!
You know,
isn't it such a mind fuck?
Well, like I literally,
dude.
I started back at chapter 1. I'm not redoing it, but I'm like doing it to where it's like, I don't want to have to like go through the whole edit process, because you said that was a pain in the ass.
Well,
and so it's like, here I am.
It was actually so it was a pain in the ass getting it there, because I just wasn't trusting the editing process. Because I was like, no, it's too messy even for them, right? And so finally I just trusted sending it.
Literally, like the first 3 like I went through, and it took me 6 hours on chapter 1, even though it was already written. I read it, and then I was like, hey, I want to elaborate here, and then it's taken me another like 6 or 7 hours on chapter 2, 6 or 7 hours on chapter 3. So now I'm on so I wrote 7 chapters, but I went back through and was like, I don't feel like that they're beefy enough. You know, you said yours got combed down. Like, I'm like, dude, I need mine on steroids.
And I wrote 10
chapters. I need more words. Give me the ones you got rid of.
I wrote 10 chapters, and then somehow it turned into a smaller book, but 18 chapters, because that's what the editors do, bro.
Yeah.
They know more than we know about that
fact,
stuff.
Here's a good one.
I need large print so that it takes up
I think
more
that this would be a value question for the guests. Like, what did you learn that process? What would you do differently writing your book?
Well, I mean, just exactly what we're talking about, because like I mind fucked myself so much going through. Like, first of all, it's this weird insecure thing. You're like, you know, even I don't care how good you get at like not caring what people think, right? It's just instilled in us, dude, especially with societies that we grow up in nowadays. Like, no matter how good you get at not worrying about the criticism of other people, you're going to find something to where you do. Right. And so like, I did that with this whole book, because like, I'm already thinking about what haters are going to say about it as I'm writing it. You know, I'm already thinking about like bad reviews on Amazon or whatever.
So weird. That thought would never come to my mind ever.
You know, all these areas I've gotten good at not caring about haters, it's like somehow this surfaced, right? And so I was trying to make it perfect, dude, you know, and even before, I was even worried about what my editors were going to say, right? Yeah. And so I'd be like, oh my gosh, Hillary's going to think that's weird or confusing, or, you know, it's not going to make sense or whatever, right? And so finally, dude, she, after a couple calls with her towards the end, she was like, just give me login to your Evernote and your rev.com and let me do what I do. And so I was like, okay. And then she'd come back and we'd have a call. This is when it finally got good, dude, because that whole year was not good. And then the second year, it was almost 2 years before I finally finished it. That second year, towards the end of it, I was just like, maybe 3 months is all. I was finally just like, here you go. And then she'd come back and be like, I see what you're trying to say here, but can we word it like this? Or would you say it still fits if we do this or that, or did this come before that, or did that come before that, you know? And then it was almost like I just let her do her job and like help guide me through it, you know what I mean? And it came out way better than if I would have just kept muscling through it, you know? So, but dude, I will tell you though, like, it's pretty cool, man. Like, even the surprise party Kaylee threw me the other night, it's like one of the cool moments that stood out was, you know, I'm going around thanking everyone for being there and stuff, and Jacques gives me a big old hug, who works on our sales team and has for a lot of years, and he's like, he thanked me for writing that book, man. Like, I've had a good handful of people that it just, you know, I've had some people be like, I literally have had some people say, dude, yeah, it was a good book, but it was really basic. Like, I can tell it's really good for like a starting entrepreneur. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what I kind of wrote it for, you know? But there's also been these people that are like, dude, like, it just resonated with them. They got something out of it. And like, Chuck gives me this big hug and like tell me how much it helped him just being vulnerable in those stories and then sharing those lessons. And so, you know, I don't know. I don't even know how many books I've sold. I think 4,000 or 5,000, somewhere in between 4,000 or 5,000 books. And it's just cool when I get to go out and then some people have read it and they're like, dude, you know, like Yelsey was doing a podcast with some kid today. I'm scrolling through TikTok, and he's like, hey, did you read Kale's book? And it was like this whole blurb on some lesson they pulled out of, like, you know, not prejudging your leads and the people you do business with. And I was like, yeah, so freaking cool. So you continue to get these rewards for this one piece of thing that you just put your heart into, you know, and it does, like, it does make me, it's what got me thinking about us doing like a real business owner's book, because part of the magic of this whole podcast is like, yeah, we've got all these similar beliefs, but we have these different perspectives that resonate with different types of people. Yeah. And so a book, kind of like Jocko and Leif Babin did on, you know what I mean? It's like, cool. They're both badasses in the military and in the business world as mentors. And then they have these different perspectives in the book. And I think that's like one of the things that's made it kind of a magical thing. So I'm like, it would be cool to just freaking do it.
The concept of bringing in like the 11th player, so to speak. Yeah. Of like either past guests that have been on here. I think that's actually a cool idea.
Yeah, that could be cool too. Yeah. But dude, I think you should write your book though, because I would read that book.
Dude, what you just said, just this will be a reminder when I have listened back to that, the idea of not prejudging, that's for sure, I think that is extremely important. Like, that's one of my lessons that I've learned.
We all do it, dude. I still do it to this day.
Yeah,
but it's
I
like
mean,
if you get hyper aware of it, you know.
Yeah.
You know, do you remember when we were down in Malibu and like so I have like herniated discs in my neck, right?
I thought you were going to talk about prejudging the
no, remember that lady prejudged me? I'm sitting out on the what?
The toilet that squirts up your butt.
The bidet, which they're
I prejudged it, dude. I didn't want things squirting.
That was my first time having one too, dude.
Yeah,
no,
I mean,
we all bonded in Malibu over the.
You know, I'm telling you, if there are anybody out there that can write and build an app, please build one about where's a bidet near me. I would literally choose to
bidet's
stay
near you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nearest bidet.
Yeah, no, I was talking about the lady that prejudged me I've got herniated discs in my neck, so in fact right now it's kind of giving me an issue, but I went outside of this really fancy steakhouse. Remember when we went down there, and I put my neck on that cold rail and just kind of had my hat tipped over my eyes.
Yeah, I remember.
This super swanky place down in Malibu. And all of a sudden I hear Trevor's booming voice like, dude, that dude's not fucking homeless. Shit, that's a $3,000 camera. What are you talking about? But some lady came through and thought that I'm a homeless man on the bench sitting out in front of some swanky.
Yeah, well, you were kind of fucking tilted. Like maybe
you tilted.
Had a couple
I was wearing
and you were tilted.
You were tilted on the bench, wearing a flannel.
Wearing a flannel with the beard. I mean, I can get it, but you know, dude, if that
lady, you had a beanie on too.
I don't know, bro.
I think I might have.
I think you did, and I think like kind of the homeless, like grunge look vibe is in California, so it's very hard to distinguish if you're sitting on a park bench tilted.
If you're bougie or if you're homeless.
Yeah, like,
it's kind of
a super wealthy or is he homeless?
Yeah.
You know, but they chose homeless.
Either he doesn't really give a fuck or he doesn't really give.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That is another thing I actually like about getting older though.
Yeah.
You just really quit caring.
Yeah.
You just learn where to care. Dude, I really don't.
Like, I mean, dude, we're all kind of like, we all want to get it right. You know what I mean? But like, and that's why
I quit
it's
obsessing
with
on
writing
stuff.
a book. I'm sure you've had those thoughts already as you're almost halfway through your book. Like,
dude, I've read a bunch of it. It's good. You need to finish it.
The thing is one, you know, people prop us up and like think that we're like fucking special or something because we have a podcast that does really well or businesses that do really well, right? So one, you don't want to let those type of people down when they're spending money or time or whatever. Like, dude, like they could be reading a different book.
You want to give them
what I mean?
Best,
you want to make
best.
sure that you're bringing value to their lives. And so you kind of overly like, how can I bring the most value? How can I reword it? How can I, you know, so it's, you know, I'm not necessarily worried about like a 1-star review, you know, or anything like that. Like it might happen.
No, it's cool.
That's what they're going to say on the 1-star review.
Yeah,
it's cool that you're.
I'm not worried about the actual star, but what's the comment below?
Yeah, it's cool that you're aware of it, but
fuck this guy.
It's going to come back again. I'm going to bring up Alex Hormozi again, so I know that
that's the third fucking time on this podcast.
But I want you to know this. He actually talks about that, about going through the number of books. He's like, just because of the fact you buy one doesn't you need to read it. He's like, dude, I buy them and skim them. He's like, but there's only a few that I actually go through, and those that make it through that list that I read them, I will read them multiple times.
Yeah.
He says the best books tend to be older books that were written in different time because their motives for writing them were different, that they wanted to instill a lesson or this wisdom to future generations. It wasn't about getting the, the likes on Instagram or even padding their bank accounts. They weren't doing it for that reason. So I respect that that's wise. You want to create value in people's lives. And I'm sure that, you'll do that. Right.
I'll try.
No doubt it'll be great, dude. And it will serve all of us for a really long time, dude. Your book will, my book will. The books we write together, it'll be really cool.
Well, when you were telling him to write a book, it made me think about, because that was the Outwitting the Devil, when he was talking about, Napoleon Hill. He had a conversation with Andrew Carnegie or whatever. And he says, hey, I'll tell you to do something. And it's basically study success and study failure. And it's going to take you a long ass time, but study it and write a book about it. Like, yes, they could teach you a concept in school, but they don't teach you how to be successful with those concepts, right? And so it was an individual that didn't go run off and have wild success in business and then become an author. He basically studied success and failure, which is basically what you were saying that you were doing. Hey, I came in here and I'm going to be a student, and you've had these issues inside of your own businesses that caused it not to succeed. And so you've got the lessons of all these things that you could have adjusted, tweaked, or changed with inside of your own businesses that you've had. And then you've became a student of business, and then also seen what also works,
dude, I had
at a
the
high
answer.
level, which is literally the entire purpose of him becoming an author, was taking both of those and putting it together in a book.
Yeah.
Here's the crazy part. I actually had the answer to my shortcomings literally within the first week or two. I identified, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's it. It's by being immersed in this for so long that it's little things I don't prejudge, or, and I literally have a notebook on all of this stuff, about being around people of high net worth, that they really do, they view things differently.
Yeah.
And so going back to what we're talking about, mindset, that's all mindset is, how you view it. You can choose to take a situation and view it as positive or negative. The past year, that, like, if you would have told me that I would come back on some of these challenges that I've had and look at them as a blessing, I wouldn't have believed you.
Right.
There's no way, And so I just think that you have to be, dude, we don't teach critical thinking anymore in our school systems. And I think that's really,
we teach critical race theory, not critical thinking.
Yeah.
but we need to have,
critical.
Yeah.
There's something's got to be critical.
But I think for those people, like business owners that are successful, that is an underlying thread that sits inside of them.
Yeah. Is
they have, like, am I the best person for this position? You can lie to yourself and keep telling yourself yes. But, like, at the end of the day, dude, if a bank account is a scorecard, you guys were beating me. And that's honestly the way that I looked at it. I'm like, if I know my shit, then why am I at the bottom of the ninth with nothing up on the plate?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I haven't even made a single run on here. These guys are, like, not quite half my age, but, like, and they're killing it. And I think that's...
We've struck out enough to where we figured out how to hit a few dingers,
Yeah, we just do shit. We just keep doing shit.
Yeah.
But I analyze it and I overanalyze it, and then I'm like, you know what? The pile of shit is this big that you have to go climb on top of, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Like, that's why. And so I end up putting it off before you ever end up, overcomplicating things. So in that part, like, I actually enjoy that now, that we just kind of like ready, fire, aim type thing.
I'm a 16-year-old. Hey, Corey, I want to be an entrepreneur when I grow up. What's advice that you would give me? You see how I made that lifelike, bro?
That was uncannily.
You need to go listen to Outwitting the Devil on audio, dude. Now that you've read it.
Is it like,
does he talk like that?
He changes his voice into the devil voice.
Hey, Corey.
I would say in fact, actually, so that's, I would
so he's
say,
like literally interviewing him, and he does the devil
creepy
voice, and then he does Napoleon's voice, right? And they go back and forth.
Is it the same guy or is two different guys?
I think it's two different guys. I mean, go listen to it.
One that's
it's
doing
just
the Q&A.
entertaining, dude.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I think since you've read it and you've already got some cool
Yeah.
stuff out of it, if you go back and do the audio as one of your rereads, I think you'll be like, holy shit.
I've read it twice.
Is freaking dope.
But Corey said, like, his homie, Alex Hermosi, listens to it on audio while
he
he's
reads.
reading
Yeah,
it or
I saw
whatever.
that.
Yeah. I haven't heard of that, but like
Because reading and listening access two different parts of your brain.
Yeah.
So you're accessing them both simultaneously.
Two senses, really,
So,
right?
yeah.
Hearing
and I have done that now, and I'm telling
Well,
you,
it's just like you
reading
see an
comprehension.
Instagram clip nowadays where they all have
that's an
the
interesting
subtitles,
point. I didn't think of that.
and you're listening while you're reading it. It's like they always do stick out. You know what I mean?
Dude, I did not think of that.
Ingrained.
That is exactly the same thing that's going on.
I follow along a lot better doing that. I really do. So.
Dude, my wife and kids watch Netflix or whatever with the subtitles on. Drives me nuts because I sit there and I read the subtitles.
Yeah.
I don't watch the movie, and I'm like, hell, I could just go pick up the book.
Yeah.
But
we need to start doing 4 and 5 hour movies, which are just books replayed out with subtitles. It'll just help the whole world.
Well, answer your
YouTube
question
series.
of the
Mandatory
16-year-old.
subtitles.
Yeah.
Stat cash and delayed gratification. Those are probably two of the most fundamental things that I wasn't willing to do. And I think most people aren't. And delayed gratification doesn't mean just buying the truck either. It means even foregoing a salary if you have to. And I've said this 100 times to our media department and everybody else. I'm like, the greatest value of working here is not in your paycheck. I want you guys to understand that. It's in the skill set. It's in the people who you're exposed to, the network. People will pay $25,000, $30,000 to be in the room with Trevor and Kale. They're paying that money and you are getting paid to do it. It is 100% on you if you're not applying those things.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't want anything more than you guys to go off, grow wings, and go out on your own and to live a glorious life, But that right there to somebody that's starting out young is that everybody, and it's the shitty part about our world, it's the shitty part about the internet, is I got a call last night from my sister-in-law. My nephew is in the armed forces. And in fact, the same partner who came in with me, he's trying to sell him a course for like $10,000. And I'm like, I would suggest you don't do it. Not that there's not value. The problem is because knowledge is just knowledge until it's applied. Yeah. And so I think in the pursuit of sometimes obtaining knowledge can teach you more things than just whatever they're doing. So like you can go on YouTube and you can watch a course on how to market. And I have had so many people come up to me and try to teach me what to do. How do I do this? And I would take time of going in and pulling out and writing an email with links and like, okay, message me back when you finish this one. And they might get through the first one or two. And I'm literally doing the thinking for them. Okay, here's where you start. I started before there was even YouTube.
Yeah.
It's just that you have to have the desire and be willing to put in, you have to be willing to eat shit for a while. And I think that that's the biggest difference is people just aren't. And that's what I was saying about the shitty part about the world and the internet that we live in is that everybody thinks that it's this instant gratification that somehow that they're going to be entitled to making 6 figures in 6 days.
Yeah.
Dude.
That's a good title.
Making 6 figures in 6 days?
6 figures in 6 days.
That's better than 8-minute abs, dude.
Yes. Yeah.
Dude, somebody will take that and they're going to build a course and they're going to make a shit ton of money from that.
6 figures in 6 days. Yeah.
So, but it is just, it's crazy to see that that's the world that we came in. And so one of the big takeaways from 5 years here is the slow burn, is just finding the 30,000 foot summit and just doing the work and climbing to the top of it because your competitors won't.
Yeah.
And most people aren't willing to do that.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm. Most people want to get rich quick. Right when the first big check hits, they want to reward themselves. Right?
Take your foot off the gas. I've done it.
Literally, the only reason why we're able to do what we're doing in terms of starting to build the powerhouse that we're building, in terms of, as we alluded to earlier, 80% of our staff being different. And when we say different, we mean of a lot higher caliber, like the payroll says
showing
it. Yeah, and so it was delayed gratification that allowed that to happen. Like, you will stunt the growth of your own business, and it'll only get to a certain level. Then you're going to stay stuck at those problems, and stuck in the business doing the same things over and over and over, like Groundhog Day, unless you can buy yourself out of those problems by replacing yourself with other individuals that can deal with those problems better than you. Right. And you, one, have to delay gratification. And then secondly, kind of get rid of the ego at one point to say somebody else might be able to do this better than me. Like, and sometimes we put all of our value and all of our worth that we own and run and operate a business. We're a business operator. Like, there's almost more validation in being a business operator rather than the business owner. when in reality, the idea of starting a business was so that eventually you could own a business and buy back your time and do whatever you wanted with it, whether it is starting a mastermind and then taking information and pouring into other people, or whatever, starting another business or doing whatever you want to do. But the idea is, I will tell you, you're probably not good enough to operate and run the business by yourself. That's just a fact. If you're ever trying to get it to the point where it can impact your entire family and all of your employees and, you in a positive way, right?
Yep.
Like, we have to get rid of the ego, and we have to have the financial capabilities of bringing in people better than us.
Yeah.
Right.
Spot on.
I think another really, really important lesson that nobody talks about in this entrepreneurial journey, okay, you get to the finish line,
is how many people take Adderall.
when they get there and they just don't, like, they're unfulfilled by it. And so this
That's true.
perspective of like where you guys invest in us
Yeah.
and the people around you, and like, I think that there needs to be early on, like we talk about an exit strategy, cool, easier is going to sell one day for whatever, but like taking stock of a personal inventory of like, where do I want to put my life after this thing, or like, what do I want to invest it in?
Yeah.
And, for me, it's cats. Like, love spending time with my cats.
Cat farm.
Cats. But no, like, but realistically is just, I think that part of it is adopting the mindset of service and to actually be a decent human being. I think it's something that's really overlooked for a lot of people. And by the time that they hit them, and the same individual who came in the appointment with me, that person, I'm afraid that they're going to get to this shiny destination at the end and realize that there is no soul in it. And like, cool, you got big fat stacks of cash, but like inside, like, how hollow are you? Like, are you a genuinely happy person? You've said that, money is just a magnifier. So I just think in this process is that you have to just kind of figure out like who you are, what are your ideals, and what do you stand for? And that's why I just tapped into service. I freaking love doing it. I love.
And be willing to update it, dude, because you're going to go through it no matter what. You know what I mean? You're going to like always reach these points like, dude, it's going to be really hard one day. Like when we get to the finish line, not easier accounting, but like, I know my role's not here for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? It might be 70, might just be 7 years from now, whether it's an exit, no matter what it is, but it's going to be a really weird adjustment. And it has been every time we've closed a department or switched into a new role or, letting go of control of these certain things. And so, it's going to require a lesson. There's got to be a lesson in it. So when you meet these people that are really hollow, they're like, man, I sold my business and now I have nothing and I'm super unfulfilled. They probably didn't feel like that when they were building it. There was something that was like driving them that was fulfilling. That's why they kept doing it. But now they're like being forced to update their identity. So it's actually a really good thing when they can actually understand that and then start updating it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a professional athlete that's like 2 years in freaking
Blows out a
ACL and everything else and just can't play anymore. And then what the hell? Their whole identity for 20
since they
years
were little,
has been this being a professional athlete that they're in. And then now they're like, I have to update my identity. Ends up always being a gift in the long run. I mean, look at Aaron Wagner, right? Like, how many athletes do you know that, are flying around in their private jets and have hangars full of them and, all this amazing shit
'Cause they
going
think
on,
it's gonna rain
big
forever.
old portfolios and helping other business owners invest in all that stuff, right? But it's like, dude, like, he had to update his identity. His whole identity, his whole life was a professional athlete, and he got it. And then it wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't actually what he wanted it to be. And so he had to update his identity, right? And so, I think that there's a big lesson in that, dude. Like, we're all going to be faced with that,
I think
so they have to be. So I agree with everything that you said. And then at the end, I'm saying, and you've got to be willing to update your identity.
I agree.
I think, well, we were talking about this at lunch, with Dan, and I think that you kind of have to do that every decade.
Yeah.
Like, we have to kill off the old version of us, like, literally every 10 years. That's what, like, there was the young party Trevor, drug, it went from party smoking weed Trevor to kill off. kill off that person for something even worse, which is a crackhead, you know, and then you kill off that person, right? And then you're a startup entrepreneur that thinks that they know everything because they make 100 or 200 grand a year. And then in order to make $1 million a year, you have to kill that version that thinks that they know everything at 100 or 200. You know what I mean? There's this evolution, and every single time that you go through this, whether it's every 5 or 10 years or whatever, I don't have the fucking real statistic on it. It's just, we're just throwing it out there. But every single time in order to get to the next level, you go through a lull. Like somebody that sells their business for $100 million and they're like, okay, well now what? Well, they're rich as fuck, but they're in a lull. So now they have to, again, what Kale said, create a new identity and turn inward. Who am I? What am I about? What are my values? How do I want to impact the world? And, you know, what's my next move? You know, how do I invest into me to where eventually, whether it's $10 or $100 million, I feel good about who I am when I lay my head on the pillow at night.
And that's winning the game.
Right. And that's
it.
winning the game is if you are actually a happy, healthy, whole, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and there's somebody worth $100 million that's absolutely hollow, who's really winning, right?
Dude, I'm telling
idea is
you,
to bring both of those together though, right? I'm not saying be one or the other. Why can't you be whole financially as well as mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, right? Like bring it all together.
And I don't think it's a conscious thing that people are like, hey, this is a new phase in life, I need to do it. It's through like shaking things up.
Yeah.
When you come through and you're like, all right, I'm going to shut things down. I'm going to do this, you know? So a year and a half ago, well, November was a year ago, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. And in those few moments, that was, I knew like right then, okay, this is one of these times.
Yeah.
And like, how am I going to respond to the situation? And it's so crazy to be on this side of it after surgery and wasn't able to do chemo. Well, started chemo and then ended up getting sent to the ER and all that shit on it. But if you would have told me the week of diagnosis or even week of surgery or whatever, Corey, I promise you in a year, you're going to look at this a year and you are literally going to declare that this is one of the biggest blessings you've ever been given, I'd have fucking told you to get out of the room.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to like sometimes take shit and try to find the gold in it. Mm-hmm. But the sad thing is, I think most of the time that's how it happens. I think that like in these early phases of being, you know, addicted to drugs or whatever, there's almost always a catalyst that is involved in the transformation. Mm-hmm. And it's never this point. And what's the catalyst when you cash $100,000 check or $1 million check? Those are the unfulfilling catalysts. I've cashed a check for $100,000 and it was completely unfulfilling.
Yeah.
And then I got back to the office. My client called and he's like, holy shit, man, you saved that in the 11th hour. And like, you're the man. And I received more gratification out of that phone call than depositing the money.
Yeah.
And I learned in that moment, and I know you hate it when I say this, but that I'm not motivated by money. And I keep saying I'd love big fat stacks of it too, but I've learned how to flip that. Yeah. And that's that I'm motivated by service. And guess what? If I serve you guys and if I serve this company and I do a really good job at that, the money's going to follow.
Yeah.
I know it. So,
I think one of the only ways to, everybody will face their storms and have to identify that they're the villain and something has to change within them for their situation to change. But I think one of the ways to minimize the storms is through constant self-evaluation and self-improvement. Mm-hmm. What happens is we get on these journeys of self-improvement and we're really committed to it and things are going good. And then we stop doing all the things that we were doing
to get you there
when things were good, because now we feel good and then we start sliding back down and then we hit a lull again. And then all of a sudden, man, I'm just really in a lull and I'm in this storm. And then what do? We analyze self and start being like, what was I doing when I felt the best? And then we start doing those things again. And we create these peaks and valleys for ourselves. Not saying that if you're doing all the right things that you're not going to deal with a storm or hit a valley. I mean, it just is what it is. But at least at that point, you're probably a little bit more mentally and emotionally prepared for that valley than if you weren't doing the work, right? But the storm is not there to destroy you. It's actually there to take out the old version of you so that you could rebuild. It's taking you back down to a foundation so that you can remodel things and make things how you want it for where you're at this point in your life. It's not meant to wash you away so that you're just done, right? It's to change your perspective, just like the storm that you had last year. It ended up being a blessing so that you can rebuild with a new perspective and be the version that you are today that can have the ability to serve people at the level that you want to serve people.
Yeah, what I learned from that is that my time here is finite. We all go around thinking that we all know it. Like, hey, someday our ticket's going to be called and we're cashed out, right? We all know this. But when you're really looking at that and you really understand that, dude, I really do have an expiration date on me. This is, it's coming. It looks like right now it could be coming really quick. All of these dreams and all these things that I wanted to do my whole life, is that even at 51, I'm like, oh shit, if I live to the statistical average of 76 years old. But now when it's being accelerated at that rate, that I have to literally be giving choices of where I put my time now.
Yeah.
And like from that, dude, I consciously choose to spend time with my family. Obviously, dude, being here is a choice, guys. Like, and I feel bad for people. I've spent time behind a shovel in ditches, hating every minute of it. I know what physical labor is like, calluses and working out 115 degrees and screeding concrete. I feel bad for people who hate their jobs,
right,
and that have to go through the drudgery of it.
That's the only reason I say quit saying that, you're not motivated by money, because you need to have some money motivation, bro. Because I also, people that are like super service oriented like you, but then they're not motivated by money, one, can get taken advantage easier, right? And get walked on.
And that's easier. That has happened a lot. And that's why I'm with you guys.
Two, like, you have this cancer scare, bro. And it's like, puts how finite your life is in perspective. And it's like, but I also know how bad you want to make sure your family's okay when you're not here. And so like all those things, like I actually think it's really cool you're not motivated by money, dude. I really do. I think that's awesome, because it's not like you won't go take advantage to get it, right? But you also need to make sure that like you are able to tap into that motivation to have it, because of how important it is for those things for you as well. Your family being taken care of, not being taken advantage of, and being able to serve at the level that you want to serve. Like, dude, who's going to build Best Friends 2 for cats if you don't do it, dude?
Like, who's going to rescue all the cats after you're gone?
It's a long one, dude. I missed my 4 o'clock call.
You did?
4:17.
I'll call him.
Well, guys, if you want to join the Real Business Owners Mastermind, you met the guy that you're going to have to speak to. And
he's the one that really approves you.
Yeah, you better be good with God, because he says a prayer right before.
That's the truth to do.
Right before any of the applications, any of the calls for the applications, because we obviously want to have the right people in the room. You heard him talking about service. The idea is for him to put the right people around the right people, the people that are of service, so that they could be there to serve and be served. Right? Because if you put enough people there that are of service, by default, you're just going to be served, right?
And I'd like to take credit, but it's not. Like, I think it's just, this is a collective, and honestly, dude, it's like, it sounds so cheap. Dude, it's weird how much resistance I have against religion. So it's even weird I say, like, it's serving God's will, but, like, I really believe that if it's God's will that this is going to happen, we're tools in this. Did you ask any member in our mastermind, and I'm talking about the OGs because we haven't got to know the inner circle as well personally yet, but any person in the OG group, they'll tell you the value is in the group.
Yeah.
100%. Neither one of you guys hesitated in that there's a magic that exists inside of there.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to make sure that we can build when we do this at scale, is that the right people come in at the right time who can help each other, who will get behind what we're doing. We can help build better communities. We can build better businesses, better futures for families. Like, I really believe in what we're doing. So it's easy to go to work every day.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, should we give him someone to reach out to for Corey?
Call Kayla.
10 cats is his Instagram. 10 cats and
it's actually just Corey McNeil on Instagram. So Corey.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. Corey McNeil, though, has been the glue for real business owners, even when me and Kale are having our spats. and having our issues, he's kind of the guy putting us back together. When you're in business a long time, we'll have disagreements and shit, and he's always been there with the mindset and the heart of wanting what's best, I think, for both of us, for the business, for the members, for everybody. And so we're forever grateful for that. And just who you are as an individual. You've definitely brought a lot of love and light into our office, into our lives. And so
I appreciate that a lot.
This individual has impacted us probably more so or equally than we've impacted him. He talks about us, the first half of the podcast, but we could do an entire podcast without him here about him and some of the things that he's done for us, just being the individual that he is. And so
it's got a lot of wisdom.
Yeah, a lot of wisdom.
He's the wizard around here.
So if you have questions for the wizard, and you want to just give him all of your life's problems and struggles like people naturally want to do, you can reach out to him at Corey McNeil on Instagram.
Yeah. Or Real Business Owners.
Or Real Business Owners.
Oh, yeah. Corey's running, the Real Business Owners Instagram. So you guys will see him, hopefully more and more over this next year. I told him to kind of show behind the scenes and, who he is and this, that, the other. So everybody in the OGs already know who he is. The inner circle knows who he is. But
if you message Real Business Owners and you say, hey, Kel, Corey or Trev, or if I just see it, or we're going to be the ones that answer it. Hey, Trev, he's going to jump in and answer it. If you say, hey, Corey, he'll jump in there and answer it because he's in there too.
Yeah. So guys, make sure that you're still rating and reviewing these podcasts and these episodes. It definitely helps us in terms of ranking, things like that. Corey's fingers are up.
Yeah, I want to hop on one thing.
Yeah.
We're going to kind of switch up the format just a little bit too. If you have a question, we will answer it. You just need to leave a comment on YouTube. We're not do it on this episode moving forward. So we're going to start doing stuff on our reels and our live that we'll be able to do a shout out for somebody on YouTube. That's going to be user so-and-so. You asked this specific question. So I want to encourage you guys, if you guys do that, you guys want to get a question answered by the big dogs, and leave a comment on YouTube.
Sweet.
There you go. There you have it. We probably should have said that in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because as we're saying, rate and review, people turn off this shit.
I know.
They're not listening anymore. Now it's just us.
Yeah.
Back
to my workout.
Yeah. Rate, review, hire Easier Accounting. Have a good day. See you next week, guys.
Peace.